So I saw Dumbo, and I have a lot of thoughts. So obviously Dumbo is the latest release in Disney's little string of live action remakes, reimaginings, I guess. And no, I will say, first of all, there will be spoilers later in the video. You've got about a minute before that's going to be an issue. Overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed the experience. There were a lot of interesting choices made, but overall, I enjoyed it. It was nostalgic. I know a lot of people at the minute are hating on all of these remakes. They're kind of saying it's all lazy and money grabbing on nostalgia and all of this. And I see where people are coming from. I don't personally mind them. I actually quite like them. Sometimes they can fall a bit flat. Sometimes they can improve upon the original. But overall, I haven't hated any of the remakes. There's been some choices that have been better than others. And Dumbo is probably the most interesting one so far. And there's a few reasons for that. I will say the things they do get right is Dumbo is adorable. It's a stunning film to look at. There's some really creative shots in there. The score, like the music, amazing, genuinely amazing. They hit on like the wonder of it all quite well, I thought. However, they didn't get everything right. So let's say spoilers from this point on, just in case. I thought it was appropriate that I would call out some of the dumb things in Dumbo. So, first of all, we're going to start with potentially the biggest proportion of this video, the characters. In case anyone doesn't know, the animals don't talk in this. We just rid the film of talking characters. So a lot of people get angry and asking why Dumbo couldn't talk, but Dumbo didn't talk in the original. He was a baby elephant. His whole involvement in the first film was that he looked cute and then flew at the end, when he got drunk. So yeah, with the lack of talking characters, Timothy, he's kind of got, well, he's not gone. I think there's like a little nod to him at the beginning, and at the end there's like mice, but that's it. He's at the beginning and the end, and that's the like, oh, here's potentially Timothy. His involvement in the film is otherwise lacking. But other than that, the bitchy elephants, they're gone. The stork intro doesn't happen. The racially insensitive crows, they're gone. So instead of all of them, we have wartime dad who's lost his arm, young girl that's into science, young boy that held a feather, lady that rides Dumbo. Why? We don't know. Then we have big bad guy. We have circus troupe. And then we have other forgettable characters like angry circus workers, and big bad henchmen assistants, and character that was originally with the bad guy that becomes a good guy that isn't the other character that does that. So I'm going to go into a little bit of why I don't really care about any of these characters. They're all very 2D, there's not a lot of depth to any of them. And when I'm watching a film, I very much like some depth to my characters, something interesting to go with. But no, we get wartime dad who's lost his arm. So he comes back from war at the beginning of the film, hasn't got his arm. There's an awkward scene where the kids almost resent him for it, or do they feel sad? We don't know. But no, his entire storyline of involvement is he doesn't listen to his kids, that cliche storyline we've had a million times. And then his other story arc is he used to have an act where he rode horses and did tricks, but now he's got one arm. Is he still going to be able to do it? He kind of wants to prove that he can, but his horses have already been sold because the circus isn't doing too well and they had to make some budget cuts, and he wasn't there. The mum is already dead because it's a Disney film, and you know, the kids didn't pick up the act. Yeah. So we have character number 2, which is the little girl that's really into science. Her whole thing at the beginning of the film is that she doesn't want an act in the circus because she's into science and she wants to be known for her scientific discoveries, not for some little tricky act at a circus. Usually that would be admirable to sort of hold on to your integrity and go against expectations, all of that stuff. But you have to kind of weigh in the fact that if she claims to be so intelligent, and if she is so smart, you think she'd probably work out that a key thing for her family's survival in this circus would be to have an act, and without that you're putting your entire livelihood on the line. You can still be into science, but maybe do trapeze as well, I don't know. I actually think it would have been more interesting if they went down that storyline of, you know, she doesn't want an act, she wants to do science, but she knows that she has to survive, and to survive they need to stay in the circus, and to stay in the circus she needs an act, so she does that fake mind reading psychic thing, and she hates herself for it, and, you know, that would be an interesting emotional journey. And she wants to do science, she could still practice it in the background. I just think that would be more interesting. I'd respect the character more for having the intelligence to know that sometimes what you want and what you have to do doesn't always match up all the time. And then you could have had that liberating freedom moment where she gets to do science at the end and she's happy again. But instead she just kind of is a stubborn kid that doesn't really want to do anything. I think it would be different if she was like inventing things in the background, but she's kind of saying that she wants to be known for her scientific discoveries, but all we've actually seen her do is take the heartbeat of a mouse. Now that just comes across more like she's playing vets than scientifically discovering things. I don't know. I think it's dumb. And actually, for someone who wants to be known for their scientific discoveries, there's a whole bit when they're kind of working out what makes Dumbo fly. So when you first see Dumbo fly in the film, you see that he breathes in the feather and sneezes, and that makes him fly, and they're all like, whoa. Now later on, in the scene where they're trying to make Dumbo fly again, there's a moment where they've like piled these peanuts on the floor and they've been playing with the feather, and then there's a moment where the girl's like, oh, it's not the peanuts that make Dumbo fly, it's the feather. And you kind of sat there like, was it ever the peanuts? There is nothing in that film that made me as a watcher think, oh, I think it's the peanuts that make him fly. So, you know, that scene doesn't really do anything other than show that she's wildly incompetent for a scientific mind. So where is this genius mind? You don't show us, we're just told. And then we've got the young boy. He's just there to love the elephants and stare in wonder when Dumbo flies. That's about the extent of his involvement in the film. And then you've got the lady that rides Dumbo. I feel like this film wouldn't have been that different if you just completely removed her from the narrative. I mean, she's fine. Her arc doesn't offend me. But when you're first introduced to her, she comes in with the bad guy and you're kind of like, ooh, she's going to be one of the villains. There's a scene later in the film where Colin Farrell goes to sort of start training this woman on how to ride Dumbo, and she kind of turns to the kids and she's like, I believe it's the children that taught the elephant, or something like that. And you're kind of like, oh, is this it? Is she gonna be evil and manipulative? Is she gonna like exploit the naivety of children and kind of steal their methods? Maybe this is gonna be a wake-up call for the smug scientific girl. Or maybe her genius mind is going to clock onto it and she's not going to let it happen or something. But no, literally 2 or 3 scenes later in the film, they're all like best friends, and it doesn't really go anywhere. There is a scene where she nearly dies because the big bad guy doesn't put up these safety nets, and she almost falls when she's trying to ride Dumbo in front of a crowd for the first time. And that kind of reinforces sort of her siding and her defiance of the big bad guy. But she's already seemed quite pally with the good guys before this, so it's not really a huge culture shock. Come to think of it, this film suffers from the same thing that Greatest Showman did, where rather than sort of develop the characters and show this slow, deep shift in a character's motives and their arc, it's very point A, point B. This is happening, now this is happening, now this is happening. You just accept it. And it doesn't make for a bad film, it just makes for a very sort of, like, who else? You've got big bad guy, very generic bad guy portrayal. Starts off being all charming, but you see right through it straight away. I'm pretty sure the soundtrack even plays like a dubious, sort of unsettling sound in the background when you first see the character. Don't quote me on that, but I remember feeling obviously uneased. And, you know, they might not have been trying to pretend, but I don't know. You then have the circus troupe, which again suffers from the same thing that the freaks in Greatest Showman had, where they're kind of there when the director wants to use them, but other than that, you don't care. There's no development. They're kind of furniture rather than characters. So other characters, you've got angry circus workers, you've got bad guys henchmen, just a lot of forgettable portrayals. Now, I wouldn't even necessarily say the acting of any of these characters is terrible. They're all reasonably believable, but it's just, they don't have a lot to do. It is very, nah. But you know, I just realised we're in the character section and I haven't even mentioned Dumbo. Dumbo, they do get very right. He's very cute. The like shrieks and whines that he has when all of the sad stuff happens to him, kind of cut deep. They really hit you in the feels. Yeah, they did that really well. I don't even mind that Dumbo has kind of been sidelined, because in the original film, he was very much a reactionary character as it was. He didn't speak, so it was all the other characters that kind of reacted to him, and that's very much similar to what we're getting in this film. The difference being the main focus is on the human characters, but the human characters' storylines and sort of motives kind of all fit around Dumbo, so I didn't mind it. Dumbo was still the centre theme and plot of his film, so I didn't mind that. A lot of people are angry about it, I didn't mind it. If the sofa's moved, it's because I got up to blow my nose, and when I sat back down, one of the legs collapsed. So I will be going for a run after this video. So, weird choice number 2 is the whole Baby Be Mine scene. Now that's the iconic scene from the original. They did recreate it quite nicely, I thought. But in the original, it genuinely made me cry so much. It's when Dumbo's like swinging in his mum's arms through the bars when she's locked up and he's outside and he's escaped his little tent. But in this film, it was beautifully sung. I really liked that. What I found weird about it is you had the scenes of Dumbo walking up and the trunk coming through, and that was all still really sad. But they kept cutting away to the mermaid singing it around like a campfire with the circus troupe. And I don't really know why they did that. The circus troupe aren't really people that you care about. It almost seemed like they were placing the fact that the song existed in the world, and it wasn't like the mum elephant singing it. But in the original, I didn't really think it was the mum elephant singing it. It was just, it very much comes across like a backing track. It was just weird, and it kind of took away from the emotion, because they cut away from these cute, sad scenes with Dumbo and his mum, and they were cutting to like the mermaid singing. Like, if you're gonna mash it up and cut up the scenes to try and invoke emotion, the next shot is like the following morning, and Dumbo's mum is taken away in a carriage. If you really want to like make people cry, have the song in the background. We don't need to know that it's being sung in the real world. We don't. So just cut it up between the sad scenes with the trunk through the bars, and then cut it to the morning when the mum's being taken away and Dumbo's like crying and running after it. You could chop that up and make that so emotional, and like it could end with like the final bit where like he's being hugged by the trunk, but you know that the next morning his mum's being taken away. Like, I would have bawled my eyes out, but I didn't cry during that scene, and I thought I would. I'm a crier. But no, they just chose to cut it to this mermaid woman singing at a campfire, and I don't know, I wasn't angry about it, but I did just think like, why? So another weird moment in this film is when they're in this Pleasure Island ripoff, Dreamland. They've gone in and it's like Dumbo's big, like, scene, spectacular first flying thing. So they're all rushing into this arena, and, you know, it's set in like 1940, I'm assuming, because of the war. And they're like running in, and there's these like 2014 edition Dumbo plushies all on a stand. Like, like they're pretty much the ones that you can buy in Disney World now, and they're all there in this 1940s things. Like, I'm gonna go get you an example of what a toy looked like for my parents, and they were born in like the 60s. So this was my grandparents, so that would probably fit around sort of 30s, 40s. This was my mum's, so that would fit around 60s. And then like, so in between these eras, they've just full on shoved like this. Like, this is what, like a 2006 Totoro thing. Just imagine this, like, in between these era. It's just, like, I know we're seeing an elephant fly, but they've made a whole point about not having talking animals, so they're trying to put it in this, like, realistic environment. And I know this is the same environment that has this huge, like, double-ended Ferris wheel thing. So, you know, we can suspend our disbelief, but it just looks so weird, and it just made me laugh. And I don't know if it was Disney intentionally getting a merch plug in there, or if it was Tim Burton trying to do this whole, like, comment on how Dreamland is like Disneyland. I don't know, but it was weird. And before everyone does say in the comments, like, oh, you are watching a film about an elephant flying. Elephants flying isn't a normal thing in this, like, universe, because the whole point of this film is that there's an elephant that flies and that it's this huge, wonderful, spectacular thing that never happens. So, like, I don't know, just pick whether you want us to suspend our disbelief or not. Next. Let's get ready for Dumbo! No, they do it twice. They do that twice in the film. Just in case you missed it the first time, they do it twice. It falls flat on both occasions. Another thing I thought was weird about this film is they cut Drunk Dumbo. Drunk Dumbo is the best part of the original. When the clowns knock over alcohol into the water and Timothy Mouse goes in there and then Dumbo drinks it and they just get wrecked. And then Dumbo has this, like, illusion of all these, like, pink bubble elephants. And then that's when they wake up in the big tree, and then that's how they figure out that Dumbo flies. That would have been funny to see somehow in this. I get why they cut it, but no Drunk Dumbo. And there was a weird moment where Tim Burton tried to pay homage to that with, like, a pre-show for Dumbo's big flying spectacular, and it's when Dumbo's on the sidelines and there's these, like, bubble workers making these big, like, bubble elephants. And again, it's a moment where you're like, I know I'm watching a film where an elephant flies, but how are these bubbles moving this way? But these bubble elephants, they defy logic or physics. And bear in mind, this film has a girl who's really into her scientific stuff. She has no reaction to this. And it's almost like magic in a non-magic world. I don't know, Tim Burton can't work out whether he wanted this to be like real or not. Okay, so we're just gonna finish this off because I could rant for ages, but my final weird, dumb thing is the ending. So at the end of the film, there's this whole moment where DeVito's character, the big... Oh, I didn't mention him in the character bit earlier. DeVito plays like a circus owner. It's actually one of the characters I didn't mind so much. Still very 2D, but, you know, he did it well. It was nice to see Danny DeVito there. But no, he's making this trailer for his circus. And he's, like, talking to the camera. It's very meta. And he's doing this whole thing where he, like, lets the mice out of the cage. So we've got our irrelevant nod to Timothy Mouse back. Yay. He says this line that's something like, "No animals to be kept in cages." And, you know, I get it. It's 2019. You want to get this positive, like, anti-captivity message out there. That's great. Fantastic. But then a few shots later, Colin Farrell's character comes out riding a horse. And it's like I get that a horse isn't technically kept in a cage. They're kept in a stable. But it's like a tomato situation. Like, it's captivity. And also, if they are still touring on the train, can we just talk about how to get the horse to the next location, it would have to be put into a cage train thing. But yeah, at least we get a closure to wartime. One arm auntie used to be a rodeo person's story arc is that he's riding his horse again, and lady that rides Dumbo, she comes back in and she also goes on the horse. So it seems like she's just replacing the wife that used to do it. Oh, and he's got a robot arm now. Oh, young scientific girl, she now has a tent where she shows, like, she does this little projection thing and it's supposed to be her, like, scientific tent. So that's great. We didn't really see how she got there, but she's there now. So yeah, one thing they do massively do differently is the ending of this film. Dumbo and his mum are now in the wild. There's this, like, weird shot at the end of the film where they're at the top of this cliff and they look down and there's this huge, like, waterfall and, like, there's, like, a river or whatever. There's, like, this opening where all these elephants are there playing around in the water. and Dumbo and his mum are at the top of this cliff, and then Dumbo flies down and around, and he kind of has a swoop, a celebratory swoop. It's a Disney film, so if they can't have a musical number, they'll have a swoop. And this is where I have strong feelings about where Tim Burton went with this, because he had a number of options and he missed out on all of the good ones. I'm not sure if anybody remembers, but at the end of the original Dumbo film, they're still in the train, they're still in the train circus. Dumbo's like celebrated, he's like having his ears insured and all of this. You see all these papers that are like obsessed with him. So he's still in captivity, but he's made to feel like a celebrity. And one of my favourite parts of that entire film is right at the end when you see Dumbo's mum in this like luxurious, almost like a super yacht on the back of the train. It's like this big swanky carriage that she's now got because her son's made her a millionaire elephant. And it's just really funny, and it makes me chuckle. Mrs. Jumbo's having a bath, she's having a great time. And Tim Burton could have made like a cool, over-the-top, steampunky looking sort of like carriage, but he just decided not to go down that route. He wanted that anti-captivity thing. That's fine. But then you do the other thing. What I would have liked to see is when Dumbo's doing his celebratory swoop around, if he just gets on the ground afterwards and he's down there with the elephants and he just looks up like, come on in, mum. And then you could have done whatever you want. You could have had it be a genetic thing, and Dumbo's mum she uses her tiny little elephant ears and she still flies down, or maybe she jumps off and she's like, oh, I can't fly, and colossal mistake, shouldn't have done that. I would have liked to see him just touch down at the bottom and then sort of turn around and look up to his mum, and his mum's still at the top of this cliff, absolutely clueless on how the hell she's going to make her way down there. And then, I don't know, maybe Dumbo turns to the camera and then these glasses come down and a cigarette comes in his mouth, and it just says Thug Life across the top. I don't know, this film was weird. I did like Dreamland. It was cool to look at. I liked when it was all burning down at the end. I thought the whole thing where the villain was like pulling all these levers was stupid. That should have made this list. But it was like a spectacle. It felt like a part, like when I was watching the film and they went to Dreamland, I kind of was sat there thinking, did this happen in the original? Maybe it did. Maybe I don't remember the full film. It didn't. I was getting it a bit confused with Pinocchio when they go to Pleasure Island. But it didn't feel unnatural, and it felt like a good way to take the story. I felt like they didn't put enough time into it all. But no, I didn't hate this film. I did quite like this film. I think a film can make bad choices without being a bad film. By no means do I think this is a film that is incredible. It's nice, it's heartwarming, it has its moments, it's very cute, it's a cute film. I think Dumbo is a relatively low stakes Disney film, and every Disney film will have its like die-hard fans who like love and are obsessed with it, but generally speaking, in people's like top 20 lists, Dumbo would be somewhere towards the bottom. You've got your Aladdin, your Beauty and the Beast, your Little Mermaid, you've got your Frozen, your Tangled, like there's all these like big, more popular ones. Dumbo was one of the older ones, it's one of the shorter ones, it's one of the ones where the original storyline in Dumbo isn't that great. Dumbo's more of like an animated short that they made into like an hour-long spectacle, whereas this one feels like it has more of a beginning, middle and an end. Is it something that I'd say go out of your way, spend a lot of money to go see? No. Is it something that I would recommend seeing if you want to go see something and you're not sure what? Yeah, go see Dumbo, why not? Like, if you don't like the live action remakes, you don't have to see them. If you don't like Disney and you're really going in on these live action remakes, again, you don't have to watch them. Disney know that their live action remakes are gonna make at least their money back, and probably then some. And if Disney know these are gonna bring in money, it kind of gives them a bit more money as a studio to then put money into risk projects. Whether they do or not is up to them, but I think that's a smart thing to do. I'm happy for them to do these nostalgic money grabs if it does mean that we might get some more original content. Also, I'm a fan of the parks. I've been wearing my magic band this entire time. Maybe it allows them to siphon off a bit more budget into their parks and create new things there. There are a lot of good and bad things in this film. I've missed a lot of them, just because otherwise this video would be an hour long. If you have seen Dumbo and want to leave your thoughts below, let's have a little chat in the comments section. Give the video a like if you'd like. Give it a dislike if you detested it. And let me know if you want to see more like movie reviews. Due to the nature of who I am as a person, I don't think I'll ever take them hugely seriously. I think I'll always have a bit of fun with it. I have a lot of thoughts, so I just wanted to get them out there. Talk about the points that I thought were strange. Yeah, I enjoyed the film, but it was weird. And I think that's everything I wanted to say. Bye!